Welcome to Two Guys.
A girl.
and an MBA.
America is still the best place to start a think tank or a startup company or a capitalist enterprise or tech innovative company or whatever. So there it's still number one, baby, right?
It's number one, and you bring up America has there's this thing called the Gini index where it measures the gap between the richest and the poorest. And interestingly enough, California has the largest Gini spread, which means that there's a lot of wealthy people,
Yeah.
very little in the middle, and everybody else is making minimum wage. That's I think, the flaw of the American dream, and it's becoming more carved out. Like you're talking about education being one of those multiply. It takes time, and America is
Yeah.
the richest country producing people who are not educated as well as other countries because the wealth disparity is huge. And California, which is emblematic of tech and wealth, I mean, all the wealthiest people made their money there. At the same time, there's a huge inequality of wealth there that's creating a state which has a lot of poor people and a lot of rich people and not a lot of people in between. And that would be a terrible blueprint for the rest of America.
I
Yeah.
remember the visit to Mumbai. There are also the visible gap between poorest people and the richest. Rolls-Royce, Bentley, there are a lot of like
Mm.
richest from the richest, and on the streets the family lives. So I think the same in
Yeah.
Yeah.
California. You can see these crazy people are homeless, and again this IT gods with all this money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Interesting.
what it is.
Again,
Yeah.
you can see Africa and South America are dark red, and Canada. Actually, India, I'm surprised. India and parts of the Middle East are actually showing less economic disparity on the
You know
Gini
what's interesting
index
about that? Like if you look at India and even you look at American can well, mostly America. America looks nice and beige, which is not great.
in the middle.
It's
But if
Yeah,
not
I
great. You see
if
Ukraine even better.
also.
even but if you went like sometimes a country is not a country, it's a continent. And America, if you went from region to region, you'd probably see that color change. It'll probably break up. And I would say the same thing for India. There's pockets of India that are incredibly wealthy, and India is a great example of inequality. There's a lot of rich people, billionaires living in India,
Yeah.
and we studied standard deviation and the spread of things. Like as an average, looks good, but when you break it down, not very good,
Yeah.
right?
Extremes, crazy
Yeah.
one.
Absolutely. And we don't have that in Canada. I can tell you, there's not somebody argued that there's poor people in Canada. I don't want to upset the Canadians, but what do you mean there's poor people here? Compared to like poor in the world, I don't think we have poor people here. We don't have a big spread. We have, people who might not have a lot of money, but
Yeah.
are they below the poverty line? Maybe a little bit, but I think you look at other countries and it's a massive, massive gap.
I,
That's what
I
America's facing.
I think the discrepancy between rich and poor might be, some would argue, part of what makes America so appealing, that you can get filthy rich there. And that's why it attracts some of the best entrepreneurs and risk takers, and people sell everything to get there. And it definitely has that vibe. Whereas if it was just more of like everyone's equal and we all get a great opportunity at the same slice of the pie, I understand how that's fair, but you can also understand how a more extreme place like America is an incubator for great success, some of which changed the world, the entire world, and everyone's life for the better. Smartphones. Everyone has a smartphone. People make $300-400 a month here in Kuwait. That's their salary, and prices are like they are in Manhattan here. Well, not maybe not quite that bad, but the prices are pretty high, and everybody has a smartphone. They all can afford it. That was 10 years, 15 years ago. That's a huge common good, and that would not be possible without America, or it would have happened, but like 50 years later or something. So pushing back. See, maybe there are uh, reasons to have these extremes in society. While it's not the greatest, I mean, definitely, I used to be one of those traveling hobos called musicians. So, I've met and hung out with people that live on the street and got to know them. And, I used to play music on the street.
Yeah, I'm not arguing for everybody should get a prize, like a participation prize. I believe in competition. I believe in capitalism. I think if you're laying out a roadmap for a country, you got to just get the what so. The what so is there's a big gap in America, and I'm not saying the rich should be taxed differently. They have to. I'm not arguing for that stuff, and I'm not saying the poor people, not in America. You have access to better your station in life. It might take a couple of generations, but I think what you're talking about is education as a means to do that. I think we're all like mentioning the same thing. And access this week at Harvard, well, this
Mm.
had said any parent, any family making under 200,000, your child will go for free to Harvard. Now, how many people can get into Harvard is not, it's tough. And when you get
Yeah.
there, I mean, now you got free tuition and you're writing your own ticket. But it's a I'm not a proponent of giving things away for free. I think it's got to be earned. But if you're laying out the roadmap for a society that's equal, a society that's wealthy, you can't, you know, ignore the fact that there's a bigger disparity happening in America, and particularly places like California and otherwise. And it drives policy, right? You can't have somebody who's sitting in a, like we talked about the Harvard professor who made a video about how not to go to Harvard. I mean, that kind of stuff drives me nuts. Like, oh, I'm wealthy now, but you guys got to stay poor. That kind of ideology, I think, is fraudulent, and you just got to tell the truth, right?
Okay, we can share our experience. Boston University is like one of the, and moreover, let's mention that our Questrom school became like 16, got the 16th place best undergraduate business schools 4 years in a row. And I cannot say don't go to the Boston University or Questrom school. It
Yeah.
was wonderful 2 years. It was investment of time and money, but we got so many valuable outputs. We use them right now. There's our network, first of all. We know what is going on, all these terms and conditions in the world and geopolitical situations. So I think Harvard, Oxford, and all these top universities mean something. So
I
it's just
agree.
it's a hypocritic to say like,
Yeah.
don't waste your time, don't go there.
One other thing about equity, when you mentioned Harvard, like, okay, if you make less than 200, your parents make less than 200K and you get in, the end you get in part, that's really hard because you need high SATs. Well, to get high SATs, you have to pay a lot of money for tutoring. And I know I've done it, you have to pay for the courses and the books and all these things that are just barriers to entry for the lower people,
The
lower.
interview, the essay, the your background, your
Exactly.
experience, what you did for
Yeah,
your community,
exactly.
social achievements.
Yeah, if you come from a
It's
low
like
income background where it's a struggle to put food on the table and you have to work a job when you're 15 to support the family income, it's kind of hard to go out and do community service and be like a super awesome person that gets into Harvard, you know what I mean? Like that takes only the best of the best. So there is, inequity in the selection process itself built in.
So,
So yeah.
so you went to one of the Ivies yourself, right? I mean,
No, no,
an
Johns
alt Ivy,
Hopkins,
yeah, yeah,
it's
John's
not an
up, yeah,
Ivy.
it's a
It's
well,
like Ivy Light.
so, look, yeah, obviously, we played that game. My daughter's in an Ivy, right? It's fine, right? Went to private school, but I had no money. I mean,
Yeah.
at a certain point, we had zero, like nothing. I think minus something. So, I mean, if anybody's going to argue for merit, capitalism, and earn your way, and then take your resources, yeah, she went to a private school. We got her a tutor for SAT, but that's not money that fell off of a tree. I had to earn it, and I don't come from money. So, that, so I argue both sides. I don't want to argue for anybody should go there. And I don't want to argue for legacy students popping in like most people that just like a legacy, just go. I think there was a level of we had to earn it and we had to use the tools necessary to compete for all the essays and SATs and interviews and co-curricular activities. We had to do it and it worked. But it was a lot of work and it cost a lot of money.
Is it good one? The feedback
You
about
know,
the student life there right now.
like awesome, right? I mean, listen, she gets the when you put somebody in an environment where there's other people like her, but also has a network that she can go to New York and sit at Warner Brothers, or she can meet somebody who just, head of Sony. I mean, those things fast track you in your life.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, that's Donald Trump's alma mater,
Yeah.
including Elon Musk.
The
They both went there. Yes,
opportunities there.
massive, massive networking. Um, it's just not the same. I mean, if she had stayed in Canada, we have really good schools, but nowhere near going to one of the Ivies or a really good school. Not even comparable.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from experience. My government in Kuwait funds student missions. So they pay the full tuition for students that get into most US colleges, not just top colleges, like all colleges. They pay them a living stipend. They pay for the plane tickets back and forth. They pay for books and computer. And I can say that, my education cost like $40,000 a year back in the mid 2000s. Like, my parents are well off. I wasn't going to that school. Like, I was going to my state school, or somewhere else if not for that program. And it's like I've gotten a lot of opportunities and wealth and skills and friendships and everything else in my life from that privilege. And it's like, how many other people don't have that privilege? It's a blessing. I'm grateful for it. I'm appreciative of it. And it's like, well, I think everyone should. Everyone that has the capability to do those things should be able to do them. And the truth is that that's not how the world works. Please consider subscribing below.
Thank you for being with us. Please leave your comments, feedback, what you think about us, and see you in the next podcast. Bye.